Can you remember my
Yeah.
favourite swear word in Spanish?
Caca.
I mean, that means poo. I mean, that's about right for you, isn't it? You are a bit obsessed with
I mean,
poo.
at least I got a Spanish word. It was actually Spanish.
It was actually Spanish. Welcome back to another episode of Fineish Podcast. We're your hosts, Hayley and Abi. Today we're delving into an episode that's extremely important to me, your co-host Hayley. Abi, as you well know, I've just come back from a wonderful 5-day trip in Spain.
You have. How was that? I bet it was bloody gorgeous sunshine.
It was absolutely beautiful. We had around 18 degrees during the day for pretty much every single day that I was there, minus yesterday where it was 8 degrees. And I was like, yeah, this sucks. But other than that, I was walking down the beach, with my feet in the sand, touching the water, wearing a t-shirt, sun cream on my face. It was marvellous.
Oh, bloody hell, yeah. Way to make us jealous. Do you know how bloody cold it was here, Hayley? And there was so much frost. I think it was in the minuses. So when you were sending pictures of you on the beach, you just went for your run, I'm literally there shivering with 2 pairs of gloves on in my car with like body warmer on and coat on and hat on, being like, well, good for you, Hayley. Isn't it great to be Hayley who's living her life in Spain right now?
Yeah, the thing is, though, I wasn't living my life in Spain. I was only there for 5 days. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today, actually, is that I bloody wish that I was living in Spain. Staying true to the Fineish podcast mission, I think it's really important for me to admit that I'm not really fine about being back. For people that don't know me, I actually spent half of my childhood in Spain. There's half of my childhood from the age of 10 to around 17. And I actually have more memories of Spain than I do of England. Because of course,
Wow.
who remembers much before the age of 5 anyway? So I moved to Spain when I was 10. And although it was a massive shock to the system when it happened, and it was a huge transition, Spain became my home. And I learned to speak fluent Spanish. And all of the people that I surrounded myself with were either Spanish or South American or Spanish speakers. And the music that I danced to as a teenager was either Spanish music or one of my favorite genres, which is reggaeton. Which, well,
Reggaeton.
even now, Abby knows that I love reggaeton. Like Abby has heard reggaeton.
I know reggaeton music because of you. Like, there's me
Yeah.
trying to sing, not like Despacito, everybody, not Justin Bieber's version, but like all of the other ones. And I'm just there like, trying to sing along to it. But in my mind, I know the words.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Abby and I first met, you used to come around to my house and we would like play some board games and things. And if we had a few drinks, I would always put reggaeton on the TV because that was my go-to music. So kind of musically, I was very connected to reggaeton, less so Spanish music, as in like traditional Spanish music, but also I have a few favorite songs. Culturally, I always felt very connected to the outdoor lifestyle, all the bars and cafes, sitting out in small groups of people and having a drink in the plaza, or in Spanish, the plaza, which is like the little squares that you find. I always loved that vibe of feeling connected with others, feeling connected with being outdoors and hearing music being played. I always loved the way that people talk to each other in the streets. So, for example, you see elderly people walk about the streets in Spain and they'll be talking to each other or they will smile at you and talk to you. Some of them will be quite rude to you as well. I've definitely had that before. But that's something that I personally don't see where I live here in Greater Manchester. You don't really see elderly people out and about at all, really, in the cities. Whereas in Spain, it's much more common to see two abuelitas, two grannies, two grandmas sitting on a bench, just having a conversation or gossiping or whatever. And there's something really wholesome about that and something that really fulfills me in a way that I can't explain. And I don't think I realize how much I long for that and miss it and need it until I've been to Spain again. And then I come home and I experience this. People call it post-holiday blues. When you've been away, coming home is always quite tricky, isn't it? But this is different. This feels to me like leaving my soul behind. And that sounds really bizarre, probably. I don't really know how to explain it, but I feel like I am having to leave a part of me behind in Spain and like I'm having to become this different person that I don't really want to be whilst I'm living here. And it makes me feel so deeply sad. I've cried, multiple times in the last 24 hours. This time yesterday, I was preparing to go to the airport. I'd already cried in the morning. I went for my last run in Spain and I had a little cry whilst I was running. And then I had to go home, back, go back to the hotel to see my eldest and kind of pretend that nothing had happened.
I just imagine you on a run like in Spain and all of these Spanish people just looking at you being just and you're just running like just like running and they're just like typical British people.
Yeah, to be fair, I probably did look like that as well. God, I do ugly cry. Yeah, that sucked, to be honest. It wasn't a great run.
No.
But yeah, so I cried on my run, looking not great. I then got back to the hotel and just pretended I was fine. So I was with my eldest, who was born in Spain. So he also feels like a really strong emotional attachment to Spain, despite having lived in England most of his life. We then decided to go for our last lunch. And whilst we were in the restaurant, I was so quiet. And my son is 17, right? He knows when his mum's not okay. We have quite a good relationship. And he was like, "You okay, mum?" I was like, yeah, just pretend I'm fine as we do. Because I didn't want him to know how deeply sad I was feeling about leaving. But then he actually said to me, "Mum, I feel really sad about going home." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, okay.
bless him.
Okay. I feel like we're feeling the same thing here, but we're, potentially just expressing it in different ways. I just want to sit and cry, whereas he, just tell me about it." So we had a conversation about how much we feel connected to Spain and how it feels so different. And we feel like in our bodies, we feel different when we're there. It's almost as if the world has been lifted from our shoulders. This tension that I feel when I'm in England, and this constant stress and this constant go culture, it's just gone. It's just absolutely gone. So that was nice. I then cried a little bit on the plane. Luckily, my son was sat elsewhere because I refused to pay for my seats on Ryanair. Fuck you, Ryanair.
I do that as well. I'm like, I could be with anyone. I could be with my mum. I could be with my partner. And I'll be like, yeah, and I'm saving myself £8 here. I'm going to sit in the middle seat between these two smelly people and I'm going to hate every bit of it. But I saved myself £8.
Absolutely. I had my son, right at the front of the plane. I was right at the back and I was like, "Goodbye, mate. See you later." I'm in the safest part of the plane. So if we go down, I'll survive and you will.
Do you know, I hear that so often about like, oh, the back of the plane is supposed to be the safest. And I would love to know where this has come from, because ultimately, if you're falling out of the sky, what makes the back of the plane much more likely to not just disintegrate into like millions of pieces compared to the front? Like, I think someone's probably told their kid that to make them feel better, and it's just taken off now. Like, oh yeah, the back of the plane. Like, is it right at the back of the plane? Like the very, very back? Or can you be like sort of a little bit upwards? Do you get like, are you at more of a risk of death if you're like more towards the inside of the like inner part of the plane? Where has this come from? I say this, but I am still very happy whenever I get the back of the plane, because I'm always like, well, if this is going down, I'm going to survive.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know that I'm a really anxious flyer, right? I am the kind of person who has to take anxiety medication just to get me through flights. Abby has been on flights with me before, and you've seen how bad it gets.
Yeah.
And that's after they
ugly crying
me across, the other side of the world on my own. Do you remember a few years ago for my 30th, they decided to like surprise me and put me on 3 flights to Canada on my own after not having slept at all because we got very drunk. And I was like, full on having panic attacks in the air.
I was still expecting like all the way up until you're about like we'd walked you all the way to the security bit. At any given point, I was like, nah, she's going to turn around and go, no, I'm gonna delay the flights. I'm gonna get a different flight. No, I'm not doing it. But you kept going through, and I was like, right, any minute now she's going to turn around and be like, no, not doing it. And then you were gone, and I was like, holy shit, she's doing it.
You're doing it. Yep. So you're basically saying you didn't believe in me, whereas Hayley is one resilient and committed person.
She's very committed, to be fair. Very committed.
I am very committed, and I'm very good at putting myself out of my comfort zone and growing and facing that anxiety and sitting with my feelings, even if I don't want to. So yes, I forgot what we were talking about before, though. We've gone off on a tangent again. We're not doing great today.
Where to sit on a plane.
Yes, I cried on the plane. That's what I was saying. I cried on the plane, but my son wasn't with me because I kept him at the front whilst I sat at the back. So I got home feeling quite depressed last night. And then this morning, I took my dog for a walk on my lunch break and I was with my husband. We were having a chat. And then suddenly he just looked at me and I burst into tears.
No.
What's wrong, Hayley? I was like, what's wrong, Manuel? He was like, oh, no, there are so many things that could be wrong with you right now. I don't know which one it is. So, yeah.
Gosh, it is hard though, isn't it? Like, Because there is always an element of holiday blues and people can get a little snapshot of it because is like coming, it's almost like for a little while you can step away from all of your troubles and all of your anxieties, any stresses that you have, you can just leave them behind. But I think for you, it definitely does hit different because you've always had this calling. For as long as I've known you, you've always had it in the back of your mind. Oh, I kind of want to
Yeah.
move back to Spain. I would really like to end up in Spain again. And it's always this idea. It comes backwards and forwards. And I'm always there just like shitting myself. Like, are you fucking moving to Spain or what? Because I need to mentally prepare for this. So I know how
Yeah.
absolutely horrible it must be when you actually finally get to go over there and be there and be part of it and start to imagine, oh, what could life be like when I'm here? And I could do
Mm.
this and I could do that. And then you have to come
Yeah.
back. So not only are you leaving that part of yourself behind, but you're then the same as everybody else where you have to come back and pick up your normal routine, your normal life, which for the
Yeah.
most part is wonderful, but it's those stresses and everything again. And so it's like leaving a dream
Yeah.
behind, isn't it? And it's like, well, why would I want to come back to this when I've just left that?
Yeah, exactly. But I was having this conversation with Manuel today because you've just said like it's like leaving a dream behind. And I think, yeah, deep down it is a dream. But there is a key difference here, right? Is that I lived in Spain as a child. I have got permanent residence. That's actually the reason that I was in Spain this time. It wasn't a holiday. It was a trip to go and collect our renewed residence cards. Okay, so we've got permanent residence, meaning that at any point we can move to Spain. And I've been entitled to that for
Hmm.
years because I spent so many years living there. So I think what I find challenging to navigate is that I could pick up and move to Spain tomorrow if I wanted to, in terms of residence visas. I don't have to worry about that. And since
Yeah.
Brexit, it has become increasingly more difficult for Brits to move to Europe because we now have to apply for visas and you have to have a certain amount of money. I think now to move to Spain, you have to have something like 50, 60,000 pounds in your bank to show that you can sustain yourself for a certain amount of time. It's a temporary visa. There's a renewal process. It's much more tricky. Whereas I've got
Hmm.
this little piece of plastic, as has my son, which means that we could just pick up, move to Spain tomorrow without having to apply or think too much into that. We also speak
Yeah.
fluent Spanish, right? So we don't have to worry
Hmm.
about the language. We also have experience of living in Spain. We understand the systems a bit better. We know the downsides. We know the good sides. We know the places to be, the places not to be. So we've got
Yeah.
so much insight into the process and we have so much advantage that I know that lots of people would kill to be in our position, right? To be able to move to a different country. And I think what I really struggle with is that I have that opportunity there, yet we're not taking it. And there are
Hmm.
lots of different reasons that we're not taking it. There are two main reasons that we're here. One of them is to do with finances. I think it's really important for me to say that England, we are better off financially here at the moment with our careers. Here in England, my career is quite well paid. Whereas the equivalent in Spain is much less paid. They don't
Yeah.
pay very well at all. And I don't even know if I could practice as a psychologist in Spain the way that I do here. And I think after years of living in poverty as a child, I do have this constant fear of going back to struggling financially. I know that could happen at any point, but here in England, I feel quite secure in knowing that I have a fairly decent job. I can pick up private work. I don't have to worry about that at this moment in time. And that's a real privileged place to be. Moving back to Spain would definitely
Hmm.
test that a lot. So there's that element. And then the other, probably more important element is that we've also got a younger child who is 7, who's very
Yeah.
settled, very happy. As you know, Abby, he's doing very, very well. He's
Hmm.
thriving is the best way to describe it. And I have this big fear of disrupting his life unnecessarily. And that's the one thing that kind of really holds us back. But interestingly, whilst we were in Spain, I was having this exact conversation with my eldest. And I said to him, I don't want to disrupt your little brother's life. I don't want to ruin his life. And what my eldest said to me was, Mum, you wouldn't ruin his life. You would actually save him. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, what do you mean by
Oh.
that? He explained, the kind of downsides of what it's been like for my eldest living in England as a teenager, lots of the challenges we've had, the area that we live in isn't great. I mean, we have a lovely
Mm.
home, but the actual area itself isn't that great. And there is a lot of knife crime in England. The education system is crumbling. There are lots of things that aren't
Yeah.
going so well. And there's an awful lot
Mm.
of pressure and mental health challenges amongst youth. And youth behaviour is different in this country. I don't want to go into the detail of comparing, but some of the things that we see amongst our youth here, you don't necessarily see to the same extent in other countries. So from my eldest point of view, he was thinking that we would actually save his little brother from the challenges of being a young person in England and actually give him a better life that's more outdoorsy and more family oriented and more adventurous, which are the things that kind of align really well with our family values. So he's
Yeah.
really questioned my thinking, Abby, is what I'm saying. And that's bubbling in the back of my head. This is where Abby starts shitting herself. She's like, oh no.
Yeah. I'm just there, absolutely livid at your eldest for like being like, why would you suggest that? Why would you say that? It was the only thing keeping her here. No, I mean, to be fair, if Hayley ended up moving to Spain, it would give me a reason to go on plenty of holidays, wouldn't it? You know, I've got somewhere to stay. You come pick me up from the airport. It actually, realistically, we all know what it's like to be in England, and with public transport, it's probably quicker and cheaper for me to go and see you in Spain than it is for me to driving up to Manchester, which is like a
Mhm,
4-hour drive.
mhm.
So actually, it's not really that way. It's just, I think the idea of you being in a different country feels obviously so far away, but I could
Yeah.
still see you just as quickly as it would take for me to drive up to see you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, has your youngest, has he ever been to Spain? Have you taken him? Has he like got to see it and okay with like the heat and the temperature? Because that's a way to like see whether how else he also would thrive. Is, does he even
Yeah.
like Spain? Does he enjoy it? Does he like the heat, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you have to be very careful when asking children, what do you think you'd like here? Because my mum asked me when I was 8, hey, do you want to move to Spain? I was like, yes, I love the beach. I love the sunshine. I love the swimming pool. That's all I associated Spain with. And actually living there is very, very different. And we'll come on to that in a
Hmm.
second about romanticizing Spain. Yes, my youngest
Hmm.
has been to Spain. And, we tend to get them over there every summer. For the last 3 years, I think they've been there once a year, whether that's with us or with my mum. And my youngest absolutely adores it. And it's a great opportunity for him to practice his Spanish because he doesn't get the opportunity to practice here as much. He absolutely loves the swimming pool. He loves the heat. He loves being outdoors. He's very much like us in terms of loves adventures and often asks us things like, can we go for a hike? Can we go out? Can we go for a bike
Yeah.
ride? All of that kind of stuff. So of course, he's really happy doing all of that. But as I've said, life in Spain is very different. And I do think that on Instagram, people romanticize it. I don't know if my algorithm is
Yeah.
really fucked at the moment. I'm getting all the videos of life in Spain. Have you ever seen any of like life in Spain and how much they glamorize it?
Not Spain, but I'm going to Portugal in March, and so everything seems to now be Portugal on my Instagram, and it's just showing me this really beautiful place that like dreams are made of, and it's stunning, and the food looks amazing, and everything. And I'm just like, really, is it really that great? Like, obviously,
Yeah.
I want to see that because I'm going on holiday, but is it really that great? Like, is it really that different compared to England, where like we obviously see all the deep and dark stuff of England?
Yeah.
There's no way that it's just all sunshine and rainbows over in these places. But
Yeah.
seeing those on Instagram, you can see why people would be like, if they're like having a midlife crisis, and they're like, I'm going to move to this place because that looks great, that looks lovely, that looks like nothing will ever get me over there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think everything that I see online is always really positive about these other places, and they make them seem so perfect, don't they? Whenever you see stuff about England, it's always really shit. And I think that's
Yeah.
it's really funny because England can be a bit of a shithole, but there's also a lot of great things about this country as well. So I'm really mindful that Spain, although is beautiful, it's got so many great things. There's also a lot of downsides to it. It's not perfect, and depending on where you live, the weather's not always great all year round. The summers can be ridiculously hot to the point where people actually leave to go somewhere slightly cooler just to tolerate the heat.
Wow.
Yeah. Especially where I lived as a child, where it's kind of 40 plus degrees in the summer. That's not really that comfortable. So some people do actually leave to go to cooler parts of the country. The economic situation in Spain isn't great. So, for example, a lot of young people are leaving Spain to live abroad so that they can earn money and to be able to purchase their own house. So if you are born and raised in Spain, then financially your opportunities might be less than in, other countries or England, for example. Not that England's great either, to be fair. There's a lot of issues in Spain as well. It's less, I'm less worried about my little boy being comfortable there because I think he'd enjoy living there generally if we were financially stable. It's more making sure that I'm not romanticizing what life could be like there. Like, am I imagining that our life could be this lovely Instagram kind of worthy way of living, or would it be a real challenge like it is for a lot of people that live over there?
Yeah, and that's the thing. You'll never know. You'd never know unless you did it ultimately, and that's what's even harder about it, because then it could be big risk, big reward, but big risk, terrible reward, basically, also at the same time.
Yeah.
But I guess I think about it in this: how do you feel when you're, so obviously not including the last like 24 hours because you're very raw at the
Mm.
moment after coming back from Spain, but before you even went to Spain, how do you feel where you are? Like, do you feel like there is a sense of belonging here, or is there always this niggling thought like inside, or this itchy feet that you seem to have where, because I think ultimately if you don't feel settled where you are, that's also a big like red flag, isn't it? About
Yeah.
where would you feel settled? And if you are more drawn to this, then that could be a really good indicator that that is where you're meant to be. But whereas
Mm.
if you actually feel relatively settled where you are and think to yourself, no, I could spend the rest of my life here, I just would prefer to be in Spain, then maybe the risk isn't overly that worth it.
I think you know the answer to this. And I don't think you like
Yeah,
it.
I think I do as well.
It's no secret to people that know me that I have itchy feet. Like, for sure, I love traveling. One of my values is adventure. You know, I absolutely adore adventure, discovering, having new experiences, seeing the world is so important to me because that's where I learn the most. I genuinely don't think I would have overcome some of my childhood stuff without traveling and seeing the world and learning from other cultures and seeing how other people live. So I always have itchy feet, and I feel as if I have forced myself to pretend that I am happy where I am
Mm,
because I truly believe that that's in the best interest of my children at this point in time. And I believe that deep down I feel trapped and a bit lost because I don't think that I'm where I'm meant to be. I don't know if you've ever had this, Abby, but you know, when you're in a job or you live in a place and you just know that's not your place, that's not where you're going to spend the rest of your years, right? That's
mhm,
the feeling that I have. That's both at work, that's both where I live. There's just something missing. Now, the problem
yeah.
that I have is that I've always felt like this to a certain extent. And I have historically been a person that would run from my problems to try, avoid them and get away from them because it's uncomfortable to confront things. Now, I've done a lot of work on myself over the years to the point where I am okay with facing the way that I feel and sitting with discomfort. I'm much, much better at that. But I do sometimes wonder whether me wanting to leave and be elsewhere, go back to Spain, whatever it might be, whether that's a way of me avoiding uncomfortable feelings or whether it is truly what is meant for me. And I don't
Mhm.
think I'm really going to know that. I don't really know what I'd be avoiding at this point. I avoid England. I mean,
I think there's
oh,
probably a lot of things, and I think, yeah, I think to be fair, because you've always been someone that moved, like, if you look at like your where you've been, the places you've lived, you didn't live in Colchester long, you didn't live in Norwich long. Like, think about the time frame as well. How long have you lived in Manchester now? 3 years?
yeah, coming up to 3.5 years.
3 years? So it's kind of like that's, I mean, pretty much how long you were in Norwich for. I think maybe you were a bit longer in Colchester, maybe even less. I don't know. So it's almost like
Yeah.
this pattern is like, okay, it's rolling back around again. But
Yeah.
something that I wanted to touch on though is like in terms of this longing for Spain as well. I think there's another really big element of Spain that probably draws you in, which you've mentioned before, which is the way that the family dynamic in Spain is completely different than that in England. And something that you've always
Yeah.
longed for, Manuel has always longed for, is having kind of your family around you or friends with children and having those around you. Whereas actually, myself included, you don't have friends
Yeah.
that have children. And therefore you feel kind of isolated almost as a family unit. Whereas in
Yeah.
Spain, you know that if you'd brought like your youngest up in
Yeah.
Spain, it probably would have been different. He would the people that he was surrounded by, there would have been lots of
Yeah.
children and all sorts.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, actually. That's something I was reflecting on a lot whilst I was there, is that it didn't really matter what time of the day it was. There were families everywhere. Now, even late at night, so we were in Alicante over the weekend, and there's the main area for all the bars and all the tables and chairs outside, which I absolutely love. And although there were lots of groups of friends, adult friends hanging out, there were also a lot of families, and you just see children running around, children playing together, adults interacting with the children, playing chase with them, chatting and playing. And that's something that we just don't get here. And that's not just my family. Culturally, we're not really a very child-friendly society, I would argue. For example, here, we go to work, we finish work, we come home, and a lot of people will just sit at home and watch Netflix all night, doom scroll or whatever. And I'm guilty of doing that as well. Whereas in Spain, after work, and people finish work much later, 9, half 9 sometimes, People go out and do things after work and they take their children with them, right? And that is what I am so desperate for, because we love getting out and about, seeing the world, even just going for a walk, Abby. On a Friday, every Friday evening here in Manchester, we like to do something to mark the weekend. Really important to us. Even if it is just go for a walk. And we quite often find ourselves just walking around Manchester city centre. We might get a hot chocolate and we'll just, be walking around admiring the beautiful buildings with our little boy. And most of the time we are the only family that we see out and about. And it breaks my heart that there isn't that family environment here. It's very much kind of this individualistic society where each to their own. Children stay at home watching TV. Children go to bed quite early. And because of the way that we want to live our lives, we feel very disconnected and isolated, as you've said. And we don't have any proper, true friends, people that we really connect with that have children. So therefore, the people that we do have in our lives, although we love you all dearly, because I'm sure some of them might be listening, it's not the same. And it doesn't fill that need that we have. And we don't have that family unit. We have my wonderful brother and sister-in-law. Love you guys dearly as well, because I'm sure they're listening. But it's not the same. It's not the same. So I think that's what I'm longing for, is the ability to just pop out at night, go for a walk down to the local blether, have a drink, take our little one to the park and just see other families and interact, even not interact, but just feel their presence, even just feeling people watching. That makes me feel really fulfilled.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I can see what you mean. It definitely seems, it definitely seems like a much more normalized thing for somewhere like Spain, because you're absolutely right. Like, I think the only thing that I will say to defend England is I think there are definitely certain places that are better for it and are definitely more family orientated and safer for families as well. Whereas I think Manchester is really great. There's definitely areas where you'll find probably a lot more of child friendly stuff, but it's also a very big city. So I imagine the same with London, Birmingham, Manchester, all of those places. It's just so chaotic there that it's probably don't really tend to see that many families out just having walks. Whereas actually, I'm down in Norfolk, and there is a lot of elderly here. It is like God's waiting room. But there is, I see people out with children all the time, but we've got a lot of greenery, and yes, it's flat, but there's a lot more, you can go and take your dog out, families go out for dog walks and things like that quite often.
yeah.
Whereas I can imagine in built up areas, it's just, not as common, because it's just less safe as well, isn't it? Crime is a lot higher. Even just the amount of the large roads and things like that. Whereas some areas in England, I think, are much better. But then there's no point in probably saying, would you consider moving to a different part of England? Because I think ultimately at this point, your heart has always been set on Spain. Manuel equally. So it's, it's not that common that you find two of the parents who both kind of want to go to the same place. You've got two people who both want to go to Spain. You've got your older son who would love to go and move to Spain. Or thinks it's a good idea. And then it's just your youngest. And actually, I think there are a lot of benefits of taking him over to Spain. I think there is definitely, yes, the education thing is going to change and he'll have to say goodbye to his friends, which is really hard for children to do, especially at a young age. But you'd be opening up to a lot of opportunities. And I think you'd always regret not doing it, because you would wonder, could this have been something really amazing? And it might not. It might be shit. It might be terrible. And you end up running back home to England 2 months later, but at least you tried it.
I think that's what I think is, will I regret not trying? And that's the question that I keep on going over in my head. I'm like, should we just try it? Not that it's something we can just do tomorrow, because there's an awful lot of thought that needs to go into it. And it is, right now isn't the right time. My eldest needs to get through college. Thank God.
You need at least 5 years, I think.
We need a few, there are a few things that we need to just achieve or let happen before we would absolutely consider that. I must say that when it's warmer in England and when the days are longer, I definitely feel better here, because I think there are elements of that culture that we do see in England, like the walks, going to the parks later in the day. I think it's particularly difficult at this time of the year. It's January right now as we're recording, and it's dark by 3:30, 4 o'clock. Rainy, it's cold, terrible. It's frosty. So I feel much more trapped at the moment. And I love seasons, right? I love the change in seasons, because I think it's nice to experience difference throughout the year. But I have to admit that I definitely struggle more at this time of year. And I have to admit as well that England has got so much that I do love. I don't want people to sit here and think that I'm just moaning about England and that I hate it. I'm extremely grateful to England. I would not be where I am today if it weren't for England. I left Spain to come back to England for opportunities, because, if I was still living there, I probably wouldn't have a degree. I wouldn't be a psychologist. I wouldn't own a house. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I was entitled to benefits when I came back as a very young mum that enabled me to go and do my studies. You know, they funded a nursery place so that I could go back to education. That didn't happen in Spain. When we were living in poverty in Spain, there was no financial support for us at the time, right? Whereas we came back to England and we were given support so that we could progress with our life. There are so many great things about England that I don't want to take for granted. And that's why I'm really kind of mindful of not romanticizing Spain, because I also remember the significant challenges that we experienced when we were there. Having said that, I do feel that, yeah, it's probably more that my soul connects more with the culture overall. I wish I could just do 50-50. Maybe that's the answer, Abby, when my children are all grown up. I can just do the bits of, you know, time in Spain, maybe like at this time of year where I don't really like the English weather, and then come back to England for the summer where it's too hot in Spain.
Well, I mean, some people do that, don't they? Like people have holiday homes over in Spain.
Yeah.
So you could do a bit of both worlds. I mean, you just have to probably get to a point where you could afford to maybe not have to work when you did go over to Spain. But then equally, given your job and that transferable skill and qualification, you could do like just private stuff over there and then private stuff when you're back in England. So you could genuinely live between the two worlds.
Maybe that's definitely been something I've considered.
I think you'd need to probably get a smaller house though, because otherwise that house will be dormant for like 6 months of the year. I mean, I could move in, but that's far too much space for me.
She's just basically publicly admitted that I've got a very big house.
I've just said that it's just far too big for me, you know? I'd be happy sleeping in a cupboard under the stairs. Just call me Harry Potter. But like Hayley's got a dining room. How many houses have dining rooms anymore?
Most houses have dining rooms, Abby. You're just
poor.
Do you know what the most hilarious thing is Abby is not poor. She has more money than me and my husband together.
I do not. Right, we need to get rid of this idea that I have more money than you guys. I can save a little bit more because I don't have any children.
And because she's stingy as fuck. She basically doesn't live her life.
I am very frugal. Excuse me, I'm going on holiday in February and I'm going on holiday in March. So you can take your frugal comment and stick it up your arse.
This is a miracle, by the way, people. Meanwhile, Hayley works extremely hard. Like I have my day job, plus my private work, plus now the podcast. No, my evenings, my mornings are always taken up because I want to make every single penny so I can go on holiday because I need to fill this desperate need of being anywhere but England. So I'm just like, earn the money, spend the money on holidays. That is literally what I want to spend my money on, traveling. So I feel poor, but I'm not. I have to admit it.
I think it's a good thing to spend your money on though, isn't it? Like, I think ultimately, I'm not overly that fussed about like material goods. I've had the same TV since like 2017 when I bought it for my very first house. It's the same TV. It works. So therefore I don't need to change it. Yeah. I've got a car that's on the brink of death, but it still runs. So I'm not going to change it. But holidays and trips away, now that's where I will actually spend my money. And I'll try and go away. And yeah, I will still use a Ryanair flight and I will not pay to choose my seats. But I will now go and actually buy a plane ticket and go abroad and actually see things because that's important to me as well. I think the difference is that I don't, I get holiday blues, absolutely. But for me, it's because I got to have like a solid 4 or 5 days of just being at peace and having no anxiety, no stress. And that feels so lovely that when you then come back and you pick it all back up again, you're constantly chasing that freedom, like that mental freedom. So that's the only reason why I kind of get holiday blues. Whereas I feel like I'm coming back where I belong. Because I remember when we came back from Prague, Hayley, and because everyone was just so brutal with driving and we were a little bit scared, we were scared girls to go across like what we would call a zebra crossing over there. We used to just hold our breath and just quick march across. And as soon as we got back to England and we came out of Stansted Airport and we got to a zebra crossing and like a taxi driver stopped straight away with plenty of time, I was like, oh, okay, I'm home now. I'm home, where everyone's so cautious that even the drivers are just like, oh, quick, someone's walking to the zebra crossing, we better stop 1 mile away from it. And I was like, oh, I'm home. Whereas you would have been like, I don't want to be here. Whereas I'm like, yes, I'm back home.
Yeah, but I still get the sense that you wouldn't mind living elsewhere temporarily. Like we've talked before about going to New Zealand and doing a year abroad. But I think, you're probably right that you feel like you belong here. Like this is home for you. Whereas you love traveling, don't you? You love exploring the world as well. With that, we're very similar. And I think you'd really enjoy potentially having the experience of living somewhere temporarily, even if it was a year or 2 years. But you feel this pull back home, don't you?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I feel, because Spain for me is second home, right? And I think that's that pull that I'm feeling. But I think that I've got this split because England is home. And I'm British, first and foremost, I am British, and I had half of my life here, and I've lived here ever since I came back. But then there's that part of me in Spain. Maybe we just need to go to New Zealand together, and that will get rid of all of this, hopefully, for a year or so.
That is my plan. That is my plan. I can go and do my job role over there as well. It's always been a place. Maybe that is, we just need to scratch this little itch and then come back. I mean, I will always come back anyway, because this is where important people are for me. And I think that's what makes it home.
Yeah.
And the safe driving and the zebra crossings that I can trust. Yeah, I think it is probably, are just genuinely split between the two. And so each of them feels like home, probably regardless of where you are. But because you've spent so much time doing your British stint, like you spent so much time in England, it's now I'm getting like, what's it called? Homesickness for Spain. And I imagine you could probably go to Spain and you could spend a couple of years there as well. And then you might find this longing for England again. So it might be that your life is always backwards and forwards, to the point where you do just get separate houses, and then you just do that. And that's what a lot of people do. It's totally doable. I think it's just, for you, it's trying to work out what's best for your youngest. I think ultimately, if he was older, and he could make a decision for himself, or you didn't need to worry about him, he was moved out, you and Mama would have been gone in a heartbeat.
I think so. Can we start a petition? The petition is, listeners, please help Hayley get rich so that I can move back to Spain and then come back to England if needed, and not have to worry about money.
We're going to start a GoFundMe. Help Hayley move to Spain.
Help Hayley go home.
Help Hayley go home. We can just call her E.T. at this point. E.T. phone home. It's fine. Don't worry about the fact that she's got a whole dining room in her house. She needs your help to get her to Spain.
I don't know how the dining room is going to help me, so I'm just going to have to rely on this being successful. So, So I think that we should get to the best part of the podcast episodes, which is where we ask our favorite person ever a question. Who are we asking?
Bob.
Bob. So for new listeners, Bob is our AI that we ask a question at the end of each episode based on what we've been discussing. Every single episode, we use a different person's ChatGPT, depending on the topic, what we've been talking about, and which ChatGPT we think might be best suited. So given the topic today, and with it being so focused on me and my experience, we thought that it would make most sense for me to ask Bob a question that relates to the way that I've been feeling, to see what the answer would be. So the question that I am asking my Bob today, Abby, is, what is my longing for Spain trying to tell me about what I need? Okay. Now, I've interacted with Bob an awful lot. Even, the last few days whilst I was in Spain, I was saying, I wish I was here. I'm so sad I'm going. I shouldn't use it as a therapist, but of course I do.
We all do.
We all do. Please don't do that, people, though, because it's not evidence-based. And as a psychologist, I must say that, it's not a great way to use it. Okay. ChatGPT says, based on what you've shared, your longing for Spain is not really about geography. It's information. I don't know what it means like that. It's telling you that you need felt safety, not just stability. In Spain, your nervous system settles, your body softens, your breathing changes, and you're less vigilant. That matters. Your longing is pointing to a need for regulation, ease, and relational warmth, especially after years of staying alert and resilient. It's also telling you that you need permission to be, not just to perform. Spain represents a version of life where worth isn't constantly tied to productivity, credentials, or coping well. After everything you've built in England, your education, your career, and your voice, the longing isn't ingratitude. It's a response to the cost of always having to be strong in a system that demands it. Wow. Okay. One more bit. Your longing is also about identity continuity. Spain holds your language, your early memories, your son's beginnings, and a sense of cultural belonging that predates survival mode. When you're there, you're not just functioning, you are integrated. And the longing is telling you that you need spaces where all parts of you are allowed to exist at once. However, the longing isn't saying leave right now. It isn't denying the safety, opportunities, and growth that England has provided. It's asking for more balance, so more slowness, more embodied safety, more connection, whether that's through time in Spain, bringing Spanish rhythms into your life in England, or shaping a future that doesn't require you to sacrifice your nervous system for success. Wow. Okay, that's actually quite an interesting response, because I assumed it would just say, yeah, you belong in Spain, move back
I
there.
thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was going to be like, just fucking move, Hayley. Just fucking do it.
Yeah, it actually says at the very end, in short, your longing for Spain is telling you this. You don't need to escape your life. You need to feel safe inside it.
Yeah, I can see where it's coming from. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you've definitely got some thinking to do then, my love.
Well, do you know what? Fuck you, Bob. I don't agree.
She's going to fucking do it anyway, folks.
I don't care. Bob, you don't know what you're talking about, mate.
Well, I'm going to have to go and get Duolingo back again so I can start learning some more Spanish, because I got as far as leche.
Leche. You also know,
Agua.
how would you say woman?
No, that's mother. I'm thinking of mujer.
No, mujer. That's
Is that woman?
Yes.
Is that woman?
Yeah.
Mujer.
Can you remember my
Mujer.
favourite swear word in Spanish?
Caca.
I mean, that means poo. I mean, that's about right for you, isn't it? You are a bit obsessed with poo.
I mean, at least I got a Spanish word. It was actually Spanish.
It was actually Spanish. So one of my favourite, so my son's favourite word is puta. Puta, which means bitch or slut or whore. Puta. Or my personal favourite, repeat after me, Abby. Hijo de puta.
Hijo de puta.
Hijo
You
de
taught me
puta.
this.
Yes. What does it mean?
Shit.
Nah, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So in Spain, you would say hijo de puta, which is son of a bitch. Whereas in South America, specifically Colombia, which is where my husband's from, they kind of merge the words together. And it's like hijo de puta. And I just love it. I'm like, hijo de puta. It's just got a really good flow to it. So that's what I'm giving my listeners today.
I've learned this about 5 times now and I always forget it. So good luck, everybody.
She's really shit. Anyway.
All right. Anyway, on that note, hijo de puta, everyone. I don't even know if that makes sense.
Thank you for listening to my rambles. And I'm not neglecting you anytime soon, Abby. I will remain miserably in England for the next year or so at least.
Good, because my skin does not tolerate that Spanish heat. But I will do it for you. I will smother myself. In fact, I will.
I know you would.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this one. I hope it resonated. And thank you very much, Hayley, for sharing. And I hope the holiday blues disappear soon. And then we will see everybody in the next episode.
Thank you so much, everyone. Speak to you soon.
Goodbye.